Hey everybody, today is the official release of Plasticity 1.3. This is a super exciting release. Obviously, the flagship feature is the Blender Bridge, which I have talked about in detail before. I'm going to focus in this video on some of the other more minor but still really exciting features in this release. But first I want to talk about a tiny bit of nuance related to the Blender Bridge. There's a lot of documentation in our manual, but just to help you get started. First of all, you need to download the Blender add-on from the GitHub page, and you can download the zip and install the add-on in Blender the same way you would with any other add-on. So, and also you will need to go into the Plasticity preferences and enable the bridge. It's off by default because it is a network service, and just to err on the side of caution, software like mine should ship with network services disabled. Now with the Blender add-on installed and the server on, you should be able to connect, and then the first thing you can do is hit the refresh button, and this will bring a rapid version of the scene, of the entire scene, into Plasticity really quickly. If you only want to see visible objects, you can do that. Now it's important to know that the way that this is so fast is it's just slurping in the raw data from Plasticity. You can use this to do renders, but it's not suitable really for UV unwrapping. So you will want to refacet objects before you use any of these utilities to UV unwrap or do any more downstream modeling operations like exporting for game-ready assets or something like that. So okay, with that out of the way, I want to talk about a feature that I really enjoy personally. This is actually thanks to one of our users who posted a link to a paper that had a really elegant algorithm for this. So planar edges, that is edges between planar faces, can now just be moved in like a really straightforward way. And it's not quite like polymodeling. You can see that it maintains the planarity of faces by doing stuff that it's not like moving the edge or a vertex in a polygonal modeling program, but it still feels very natural, and it's great for blocking out mechanical parts and mechanical looking parts, especially like early on when there's no fillets. And you can even do really cool things where, if you insert an edge, you can sort of, move it directly. So this is a super cool feature, and thanks to a user suggestion for the most part. Now, this release also features a new option for fillets that is really commonly requested. So, for example, when you make a fillet like this, you'll notice that there is like a difference between the width here and the width here. In fact, this surface has a constant radius, and this is what a typical machined fillet or blend would look like, depending on the manufacturing process. But sometimes we consider these kinds of edges to be not very aesthetic. So you can create now chordal or constant width fillets, edge fillets, and you can do that with more complicated edge chains than with the bridge surface command, which does support chordal fillets as well. But that should help getting slightly more aesthetic fillets and more detailed industrial design-y looking assets. Now, this release is focused as much on kind of basic quality of life stuff and not just advanced modeling features and things like the Blender Bridge. So for example, Plasticity has a totally new sort of isolation system. So what I mean by that is you can select some objects and isolate them, and you'll notice it says isolated up here. If you select some objects within that subset, you can isolate even further, and you can see there's sort of a stack of isolated objects, and you can pop out of that stack one at a time till you get back to your original scene. And this operates independently of all the kind of visibility and other modifiers in the outliner. This is inspired by Machine tools or mesh machine, I always forget which one is which, but it's like really great when you're working on detailed mechanical parts where you can just kind of zoom in multiple levels and back out and back in, and keep this sort of stack in your head. And so let's talk about the outliner now. There's been a ton of enhancements. You'll notice first of all that like objects that are created have these kinds of helpful names. So for example, I have a circle. If I extrude it, it's an extruded body. If I sweep or loft something, they're given kind of nice tentative names to help keep things organized before you start naming things yourself. Now, there's a lot of additional grouping functionality that is super useful now. For example, let me nest some groups just for simplicity's sake. So if you right-click on a group, there's all these helpful tools to expand everything, collapse all things. You can, for example, if these are not in this group, I can select them, right-click on this group, add the current selection to that group, and so there's just a lot of things that used to take 20 clicks before, and now it's much simpler. And along those lines, you can now perform mass actions on items in the outliner. So as a quick example, if I shift-click to select all these and then double-click, I can rename all of them at once. I'm going to call this circular feature. And so it will give all of them the same name with some unique numbers, and you can basically do any outliner behavior on multiple bodies. So for example, you can show and hide all objects at once, and you can apply material to multiple objects at once. Another highly requested feature is radial menus, and so now Plasticity has the ability to create customized radial menus. So radial menu looks like this. For example, this radial menu has like the selection settings here, so control point, solid, edge, face. Now, the interesting thing, it works in the way you expect. This is bound to the letter Z in this particular case. If you type Z and then you click, or you can hold down Z and just gesture really quickly and let go of the key to select. Plasticity is a very key binding heavy application, partly because of the influence of Blender, and also just me as a programmer, I like key bindings a lot, but there's a lot of people who use tablets, or they just have better sort of spatial memory than, let's say, character memory, and you can make these radial menus really simply by adding in a simple JSON format, and yeah. Now, last but certainly not least, in these kinds of quality of life improvements that will really remove friction from the Plasticity experience, Plasticity supports creating multiple windows now. So each window is its own document, okay? And what you can do that's really compelling with this feature is you can use the place command to move objects from one document to another and place them really rapidly. So if you recall the place command, if you select an object and type Control D, you can select a pivot to place things around, and then you can just sort of really quickly do a kind of rapid kit bashing workflow and decorate objects in a way that is kind of fun and cool. But now, if you want to move an object that you built, like something kit bashable, a bolt, a pivot, a screw, that sort of thing, you can type Control-C, Control-V to copy from one document to another, but also you can use Control-Shift-C, okay, select the pivot, okay, and then move into the new document, zoom out a bit, and Control-Shift-V will move that body into this document, and it works, just like the place command, where you can scale things and move things and kit bash them really rapidly, and that is something that is very basic, but at the same time, it's going to unlock a lot of productivity gains in kit bashing, because you can have these documents with lots of these like reusable parts, and then just open them in a new window and kind of copy and paste or place them into the document that you're actively working on. Okay, so that's it for today. There are probably another 10 or so minor features and, of course, dozens of bug fixes in this release. There will be release notes, and there has been plenty of documentation in the Discord so far where you can ask questions. And then, of course, everything is also in the documentation at doc.plasticity.xyz. Thank you.